A very pleasant good evening to those who are tuning in at home and abroad by radio and by way of internet. I want to thank all of you for your continued interest in this program, even during these very difficult times. It is truly heartwarming to see how many of you continue to tune in weekly to these sessions, these virtual sessions of our public meetings. It is clear to me that Labour is fully mobilized, Labour is ready, and Labour is truly ready. And I know that this week we have seen a relaxation of some of the restrictions for 4 days, and several of you have gone back to work. I know that our businesses and construction sites have been very eager to reopen, but I continue to caution all of us, to abide by the 6 feet physical distance that is required of us if we are to ensure that there is no continuing spread of the virus. Let us also continue to practice proper hand sanitization. I also want to remind us that the virus travels in droplets all around us. So we must all wear our mask when outdoors. And yes, this includes even our construction workers. And also, of course, it must include those who are passengers in our passenger buses as we travel back and forth. There are now 15 persons, we are told, who have been confirmed as tested positive, with 106 persons still quarantined at home. We must all recognize that the number of confirmed cases is still an underestimated figure, since only 257 of our population of 56,000 have been tested. And that is why, again, I want to commend Dr. Drew for making it possible through an initiative to bring test kits here to St. Kitts-Nevis, provided the first 19 to the government, which have been rejected by the junior Minister of Health, Wendy Phipps. But who has, however, Dr. Drew that is, has persevered and has continued to bring on board the thousands that he had indicated that he would bring. And very shortly, we will be hearing more about these. I want us, therefore, to continue to be very, very careful. I am very happy that many of us, such as our shopkeepers and our store attendants, vendors and construction workers, were able to return to work and earn wages for 4 days this week. However, I must admit that my heart goes out to the many, many persons who are unable to work or who are seeking work and cannot find work. And so I refer to our hotel workers and others who are directly attached to the hotel and travel industry, as well as our own taxi drivers and factory workers. I am speaking of our event planners, our entertainers, our DJs, and the sports people who may have had to cancel events for the remainder of the year. My heart is truly with you at this time because of the disruption, the displacement, the dislocation, and your loss of income and earnings. This is a government that enjoys patting itself on the back, going on the BBC News and holding radio and television programs to brag about how well things are going here in St. Kitts-Nevis. Not for one moment remembering the suffering of thousands of our people who have had to wait for 4 weeks before the Social Security assistance package could have kicked in. And even then, I will explain later, it is inadequate. But this is all very, very deceptive on the part of Harris. But what he doesn't say is that many persons have not yet received the full $1,000 that was promised. Many have been receiving much, much less and far, far less. What he also doesn't say is that the 15 million that Social Security is providing is not part of the stimulus package announced by Harris. This is an amount that Social Security is providing to its contributors based on those who are registered with it and who are paying into the Social Security Fund. The very many self-employed persons who do not have staff and for whatever reason may not have registered with Social Security, they are not included at all. This program will not assist those who work in the informal economy, such as our street vendors and grass cutters either. Harris's so-called stimulus plan or stimulus package has completely left out the two most important areas where people will really need the help most. These are: one, income support for those who are now unemployed or not receiving salaries, as well as two, payroll support to businesses as an incentive to keep 100% of their employees on the job. There has not been anything really stimulating about this fund. Payroll support should have been provided at the very beginning to prevent our hotels and manufacturers from laying off workers. In fact, it was Marcella who earlier tonight told you what we did after the economic and financial crisis of 2008, when Marriott was about to lay off its workers. The government stepped in, labor stepped in, and we worked with the Marriott managers to ensure that every single employee was kept on the job, and the SIDF provided the necessary payroll support to ensure that they did not go home, did not lose their jobs, so that their families would not have been put through hardships. Harris should have implemented a multi-tiered income support program as part of the package to ensure that the assistance would get to those who need it the most. I should also remind us that the $15 million being provided by the Social Security COVID Assistance Fund is just not enough. It is not reaching enough people, nor will it last long enough. It is for this reason that the St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party launched its Next Gen SKNK's initiative to provide care packages to those who are in need at this particular time. Again, I want to thank the Honorable Marcella Liebert, His Excellency Steve Ransford, and Dr. Jeffrey Hanley for coming forward, and under their auspices, we were able to launch the Next Gen SKNK's initiative that so far has provided 5,000 care packages both to the people in St. Kitts and also to the people on the island of Nevis. And Marcella is right. His Excellency Steve Ransford is right. Jeffrey is right. The initiative has not ended here. Very shortly, you will hear about another program which will be pursued by this CARE initiative, and it is the Health Supplies Support Program that will continue to bring relief to our people, especially our elderly, who would need to ensure that their medicinal support and their necessary toiletries are available to them so that they would not deteriorate in their health. You will hear more about this very, very shortly. And so I want to thank the benefactors, those who have come forward, who have provided financial support. And I want to thank our chairman, Dr. Drew, and the treasurer of our party, who have agreed that we divert money which we had been accumulating for the campaign to support financially this particular program. My dear ladies and gentlemen and our citizens, I want to move on to address another matter of critical importance. And this pertains to the deceptive, dishonest, and irrational leadership style of the Prime Minister in relationship to his handling of this COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. Harris's approach has been very, very erratic. On the one hand, he wants to project St. Kitts-Nevis as a model to the world by keeping the number of confirmed cases relatively low. But this is Harris's way of keeping the numbers low so he can go on BBC and brag. Brag of what? On the other hand, Harris still wants to demonstrate that we are in a crisis so severe and in such dire need as to warrant the extension of the state of emergency for 12 more months. This is why he did what he did in the parliament last Friday. He tried to extend the state of emergency for an additional 12 months, claiming that he was doing this out of concern for public health and public safety. Nothing is further from the truth. With the National Assembly set to dissolve by May the 14th, and with general elections constitutionally due by August the 12th, why would Harris want to extend the state of emergency beyond his term in office? Do we know what happens during the state of emergency? Our fundamental rights and freedoms, especially freedom of association, freedom of speech, are being withheld, and for very minimal reasons, we can be thrown in prison by the security forces without much provocation. And that is why we are saying it could not be that we would lose such fundamental rights and freedoms simply because he wants to ensure public health and public safety. Even though at the end, Dr. Harris was forced to reduce the duration of the state of emergency to 6 months. This is still far too long. Even though we know that our people in the parliament, Maynard and Marcella Liebert, our deputy leader, made brilliant appeals in order to say that this should not be right. We still had the government introducing an extension of the state of emergency for an additional 6 months. With the passage of the resolution extending the state of emergency for 6 more months, Harris has given himself unchallengeable emergency powers over the electoral system. And this means that the police and the defense force have an extended time to exercise broad powers of arrest and the power to limit the freedom of movement of our own people, citizens and residents of St. Kitts-Nevis. The Federation of St. Kitts-Nevis is on the brink of a national election, and the objective must be to find the right balance between public safety and the people's right to choose their government. This delicate balance is vital to the holistic health of our country. If Harris was genuinely concerned about containing the spread of COVID-19 coronavirus, he would test more people. Periods of lockdown should be followed by periods of testing and retesting to ascertain its impact on flattening the curve. Right now, our periods of lockdown are not connected to anything scientific. In fact, when Dr. Drew provided the opportunity so that testing could have continued, this has been rejected by an uncaring government, one who only responds and reacts by knee jerks. This publicity, I would say, is not good for us globally. Timothy Harris, I want to specifically say, is exploiting the COVID-19 pandemic as a cover for something much more sinister, and that is to restrict the Labour Party, to ensure that there is no equal opportunity to contest the upcoming general elections, which must be held by August the 12th of this year. This is a sinister, cowardly act on the part of Dr. Harris. And so Harris continues to use his weekly broadcast to push his own political agenda and bash the opposition on the state-owned radio and television stations, as well as all other private radio stations in our federation. This publicity is paid for using taxpayers' dollars. And I want to say something to you. If you look at the Director of Audit report on the accounts for 2018, the director reported that the Office of the Prime Minister, Dr. Harris' ministry itself, one ministry, overspended over expenditure of $56 million. $56 million of over expenditure on consultancy fees that went to those in the social and the regular media. Imagine how much over expenditure we would now recognize for 2019 and 2020 when we see the public accounts, because these would be 2 years of preparing for the elections and also executing the general elections of this year, 2020. All this is being paid for by the taxpayer when the opposition does not have equal time to be on state-owned radio and television, when we have to find our own resources. But he is using the taxpayers' resources, yours and mine, in order to finance his own unity political party campaign. That is what is happening. The unfairness is what I'm speaking about here. Yet the St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party is never allowed to broadcast anything on ZIZ radio and television. The opposition should have equal time, especially when we command the support of the majority of the people in our federation. And this is the same unfair treatment that we have been receiving over the last 5 years. not being allowed to use our community centers, being locked out from equal opportunity, the victimization that is being practiced against supporters of the Labour Party inside the public service and outside of the public service. And at a time when people still need to be able to register to vote, as well as to attend objection hearings, and when candidates still need to canvass their communities in order to campaign, the state of emergency is being manipulated to provide Harris with a political advantage. But we shall not accept that. We shall challenge that in every way that we can. And we ask our people not to accept it as well. Just like other despotic and authoritarian leaders around the world, Harris is trying to use this crisis to compromise and erode the democratic freedoms of our people here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We have already seen what Harris has been capable of. Our people must continue to be watchful. We must continue to be vigilant, and we must continue to be alert, even during this period of COVID-19 pandemic and during this period of state of emergency. We are not afraid of any state of emergency here, my people. Although the trajectory of this COVID-19 is unpredictable, it does not mean at all that life here in St. Kitts-Nevis should be equally unpredictable. Any government that is worth its salt and worth your vote should have already begun to put the plans and systems to bring a high level of predictability and stability to our country as we adjust to the new normal. But instead of having plans being put in place to make sure that we can comfortably live during this crisis, what do we have? No plans, but plots and scheming and plotting as to how to win the elections, thus taking, I should say, an unfair advantage over the people of St. Kitts-Nevis and the St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party. Mind my words, instead of planning properly for us to move out of this crisis into a state of normalcy, what is the government doing instead? Plotting and scheming as to how to cheat the people of St. Kitts and Nevis by having fair elections and thus giving the people the opportunity to choose the government of their choice. And that is why I say that Harris has no vision and seeks to look out for his own interest first rather than the public interest. That is why we said he has been so selfish and greedy. That is why he has been so self-serving. That is why he practices nepotism, because it is all about self. And so I advise you that the erratic, the haphazard, the incompetent, and uncoordinated approach that is being taken by this government has led to widespread confusion and has everyone feeling so disoriented here in our country. We don't know what to do because we cannot carefully plan. Our parents and our students cannot plan properly because there is still no clear plan about how our schools will remain closed, or how long, I should say, our schools will remain closed. Nor has any system been put in place to accommodate remote learning. There is no laptops anymore for our students. Our students are being told that they are going to be receiving tablets. But what are the students saying if you speak to them? We don't want any tablets. We're not sick. We want our own computers. We want our own laptop computers. That is what they're saying. We don't need any tablets. We're not sick. We want our own laptop computers. And so we give a commitment that we will fulfill the needs of our students. The students are saying loudly and clearly, we ain't need no tablets. We ain't sick. We want laptop computers to get on top of the world so that we can keep ourselves more highly educated and keep ourselves well. And this is important to us. We must make sure that we, the parents of this country, listen to our children, listen to their needs, listen to their cries. They want their own personal laptop computers so that they can continue to learn and keep healthy, especially during this period of crisis. And also, we find that our own workers cannot plan, cannot budget properly, because the number of hours they are allowed to work keeps changing from week to week. Even our investors, they are confused. People keep calling me from London. Keep calling me from the Middle East. They want to know what is really happening. Who would want to come and invest in a country that is under a 6-month state of emergency? Who will come? That is the question that people are asking. But I said to you, my dear people, hope, it springs eternal in the next Gen SKN Labour Party. We are already putting plans in place for the new post-COVID economy and adapting to the new normal. I can say to you that already we have put in place the organizing committee of the St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party Economic Recovery Advisory Council. Very shortly, you will hear more about this. How we will tackle the challenges in tourism, in education, in manufacturing, in technology, both in and out of government. How we would make sure that agriculture begins to impact positively in getting us to the state of food security. I want to commend those who have become engaged in the organizing committee of the St. Kitts-Nevis Labour Party Economic Advisory Council that will help the new government of Labour to map the course and the direction that our recovery will take as we soar again to the top and become the leading country in the Caribbean region. We will build resilience in our economy in ways that are sustainable and that would make life easier and more affordable for our young people, for our families, and for our businesses. I stress before I end, your progress is our success. We will make St. Kitts and Nevis #1 again by investing heavily, as I said before, in agriculture and food security, our ICT and digital infrastructure, investing in primary health care and public health policy, in our housing and education system, and our new thrust in modern manufacturing. We will optimize the quality and delivery of our public services to ensure maximum impact, maximum efficiency that will enhance the ease of doing business here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We will ensure that our civil servants, our healthcare personnel, and our own essential services workers are properly compensated in proportion to the value of the work that they do. And finally, our next Gen SKN team, it has the competence, it has the commitment, it has the compassion to provide the inclusive and responsive leadership that will take our country forward and upward. I thank God for preserving me, preserving my life, that I have this final duty to perform. Lead our great team, the next gen SKN team, into victory, into the service-oriented government that it must become for the people of St. Kitts-Nevis. I salute you and I thank you. Good night. God bless you.